Hey guys, so today we're going to talk about how to lose fat without having to count calories, because counting calories can be really annoying, and I know a lot of people don't like to do it, but I will say that before we even get into this, counting calories, at least for a little while, can be really beneficial, especially if you're just starting off on your fat loss or nutrition journey, because counting calories gives you an understanding of what kind of calorie content different types of foods have. And that can be really important to building your awareness on the path to being able to make healthy food choices and simplifying your diet overall. But for this video, let's get into the easy ways to do that without counting calories and make that as simple as possible for you down the line. So the first way to go about losing weight without counting your calories is to use the plate method. The plate method is super simple, and I love it because it really makes things easy to understand. What you do is you just focus on getting your plate correct, and then you eliminate snacks from your diet. So your plate can be broken into 3 different plates, one for each meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner. And the way it will look is going to be something like this. So if you can see here on this plate, we have vegetables on the side, and these will take up about 50% of the plate. So the whole right side here of my plate. And then your starchy carbs, that'll be things like rice or potatoes, for example. Those are going to be about 1/3 or less of the plate, maybe about 1/4. And then all of this room over here is going to go towards your protein sources. So in this case, we have some cooked grilled chicken here, and you see I'm just going to take this and fill it up on the plate, all the remaining space. Okay, so when you eat and when you begin to eat your meal, what you're going to want to focus on is eating protein first, because that's the most satiating of all these foods, the one that's going to fill you up the fastest. And then focus on eating your veggies, because those are really important for their nutrition content. And then if you have room left over, that is the room that you would use for your starchy carbs. So the plate method is the first and maybe the simplest way to cut down your calorie content and still have a really filling meal at each one of your 3 meals. And then of course, eliminating snacks throughout the day would be the second component of the plate method. So the second method, similar to the first, is going to be a way of using portion control to limit the amount of calories that we take in, instead of using a calorie counter to actually count our calories exactly. The way we're going to do this is by using our hands as a measurement system, because not all plates are the same, and sometimes you might be eating out and not be able to structure your plate in the way that we used in the first method. So for this method, what we're going to do is, using our hand, think about your hand as the measurement system, right? So your palm is your protein, your cupped hand is your carbs, and that will be things like rice or potatoes, or if you want to add fruit, then fruit would fall into this category as well, so keep that in mind. And then your fist is going to be your serving of vegetables, and then your thumb is going to be your serving of healthy fats, and so that'll be things like oil or things like nuts as well. Those are good sources of healthy fats. The thing to keep in mind here is that when you cook or when you're eating out, a lot of the time healthy fats are included in the cooking process. So you want to be mindful of that and the calorie content that goes with that. So I always like to try to err on the side of caution and reduce the amount of fats that I have in the actual meal itself, so that I'm not eating like peanut butter alongside all the other things on my plate, for example. So let's go into exactly how much you should use. So again, similar to the plate method, I'm going to use the same demonstration here. For your vegetables, for men, so for men and women, it's going to be a 2-to-1 ratio. So for men, you're going to want 2 fists of vegetables. So you can see here that this is roughly equivalent to the size of my fist. And you want to kind of eyeball this. It's not an exact, it's more of an approximation, right? So you're looking at your fist size related to the amount of vegetables on your plate. 2 for men, 1 for women. For your protein source, you want to have 2 palms of protein. And then for your starchy carbs, you want to have 1 cupped palm, right? So as you can see here, the rice comes out to about a cupped palm of rice, and then we have 2 that's stacked up a little bit, so it's harder to see, but you can see that there's about 2 palms of protein there, and then 2 fists of veggies. And so if you want to reduce your calorie content over time, this method makes it really easy because you can simply take away, for example, half of the cupped palm of carbs, or you can reduce very slightly. And this is what I would recommend taking away from first, because the calorie content of vegetables is usually pretty low. But I would say you can reduce the amount of carbs or even fats on your plate. Fats, by the way, are going to be your thumb size. So for men, it's going to be 2 thumbs per meal. And for women, it's going to be 1. So this is going to differ slightly from person to person, but of course everybody's hands are different, so that's why this method works really well. And you can play around with this as you begin to drop weight and body fat and actually reduce your calorie content even further using the methodology that I just went through by, for example, reducing the amount of carbs on your plate by taking less than a cupped palm, just as one example. Okay, so the last method that we're going to use is intermittent fasting. So with the last 2 methods that we tried, we are actually reducing our portion sizes at each meal, and that reduces the total amount of calories that we're intaking throughout the day. Now, intermittent fasting does something similar. It still reduces the amount of calories that you're eating per day, but you can actually eat more oftentimes because you're eating less meals total. So the way intermittent fasting works is that you're going to not eat or fast for a certain window of the day, and then you're going to eat for the other window of the day. So if we look at a 24-hour day, a very typical fasting schedule would be 16 hours of fasting and then 8 hours of eating. So the way that this would work in practicality is that you would stop eating around 8 or 9 p.m. and then you would skip breakfast, wake up in the morning, you can drink black coffee or anything that has 0 calories, and then you would eat your first meal of the day around 12 or 1. And so the way that this works is that at each of your regular meals you can eat more, but you don't have to be as mindful about how much you're eating because you're going to feel full after eating a certain amount. So it's harder for you to actually get in as many calories throughout the day because you're restricting them to just a short amount of time. So there's lots of different methods for intermittent fasting. People practice methods where they do 1 day of eating normally and then a 24-hour fast, but that can be really intense for people. So my favorite method is doing a 14 to 16-hour fasting window, which I just described before, and then eating your first meal of the day around 12 or 1, eating your last meal of the day around 7 or 8 p.m., and with maybe a snack shortly after that to tide you over until the next eating period of the next day. So with this one, it's really important to kind of map out your meals for the next day. It can be really helpful to think about, how much should I actually be eating in order to hit my goals, especially if you're trying to build muscle. It can be more helpful to really make sure that you get your protein goal in despite having a smaller eating window. But I love intermittent fasting. This can be a really great way to simplify the time that you're eating, and you can use it in combination with the other methods to be really effective overall.